After learning that my military officer husband still had an unattainable white moonlight, the woman he had always loved but never obtained, I voluntarily applied to have my household registration canceled and joined a top-secret national research program. Before leaving, I decided to get along well with Martin and become the perfect wife he always wanted. 7 days before my departure, he asked me to give up the master bedroom of our marital home to his white moonlight. I willingly moved to the guest room to make space. 6 days before leaving, he insisted on picking up his white moonlight even though I was getting drenched in the rain. I got out of the car sensibly so I wouldn't delay his heroic rescue. 5 days before departure, although we had agreed to watch a movie together, he went to accompany his sick white moonlight instead. I decided to leave early and completely fulfill their happiness. When he realized I had disappeared, he ran to the police station in panic, causing a huge commotion across the city. But the police said, "There is no person named Victoria. Your marital status is still listed as unmarried." Chapter 1. This top-secret project will begin in 1 week. At that time, all your information will be erased. Even your family must remain unaware. It will be as if Victoria never existed in this world. Victoria, won't you be reluctant to leave your husband and son? When my application arrived, even Director Lien was shocked for a long time. After all, I had always treated my family as more important than anything. I remained silent for a long moment. They already have someone they care about to accompany them. I think the country needs me more. This was because Martin was the youngest Special Forces battalion commander in the southeastern military region. As a military spouse, I believed I should make sacrifices. I voluntarily gave up my research career and willingly became the support behind his family. But only later did I learn that outside our marriage, he had a confidant he spoiled endlessly. Before signing the confirmation form, I asked, "Then what about my marriage with Martin?" The director coughed awkwardly. "It will naturally be cancelled automatically as well. By then you..." Before he could finish, I did not hesitate for even a second. "In that case, I voluntarily joined the Chilean project. I will report on time in 1 week." Seeing my resolute attitude, the director was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. "Comrade Victoria, thank you for the sacrifice you've made for the country. We warmly welcome your participation. 1 more week. I would no longer be anyone's wife, nor anyone's mother. I will only allow them to have me for 1 more week." Chapter 2. After disappearing for an entire day for no reason, the only messages on my phone were a few reminders asking me to cook. No one else cared. The night wind made my whole body feel cold. Yet when I pushed open the door, the warm light inside was dazzling. Gloria was holding my son while playing paper cutting with him. Hatred flashed in my son's eyes as he cut my photo out of the family portrait and thoughtfully pasted Gloria's picture in its place. My photo had been torn into countless pieces and scattered across the floor. Martin's silence was a kind of silent approval. A man who always carried an aura of cold severity rarely showed such a relaxed expression. He leaned back on the sofa with his legs crossed, with broad shoulders and long legs. His tall and lean figure looked as if it had been carved by a whistling cold wind. He gazed at Gloria and my son with a tenderness he had never once shown me, occasionally responding to them, holding the key to my own home. I instead felt like an intruder who had mistakenly entered someone else's happy family. When was the last time he came home? 3 months ago? 5 months ago? If I couldn't remember, then there was no need to think about it. After all, this marriage had always been forced. Back then, when Martin's father encountered danger during a mission on the border, my parents, who lived in that border town, used their own bodies to save his life. At the age when I had just begun learning to speak, I became an orphan. His father immediately declared, "Victoria will be my future daughter-in-law. Our family will take responsibility for her for the rest of our lives." With both parents gone and born into poverty, I knew I was not worthy of such a prestigious military family. But during one mission, Martin was severely injured and was on the verge of death because a suitable kidney donor could not be found. I happened to be the only match. Without hesitation, I donated my kidney to him, even though Martin's mother repeatedly opposed it. His father insisted that Martin marry me, but after the marriage, Martin avoided me like the plague, and his relationship with his father fell to rock bottom. I once thought a man like him was simply cold by nature. But while I endured the painful complications from the surgery in my hospital bed, Martin and Gloria, the military doctor who treated him, gradually fell in love and privately promised themselves to each other. It was my own wishful thinking that led me to donate the kidney and destroy their happiness. Looking at the family portrait that had been forcibly pieced back together, Gloria suddenly showed a trace of sorrow. It's just a pity that even having a family is a luxury for me. During my vacation, I don't even have a place to stay. She had always been good at playing the weak one. Gloria had lost both her parents since childhood. Back then she begged everywhere for help, hoping kind people would sponsor her education, feeling sympathy for someone in the same situation. I worked part-time jobs to support her through college. That was how she met Martin. Gloria once cried and told me she would definitely repay me one day. Her way of repaying me was to follow Martin to his army unit after graduation, become a military doctor, and stay by his side day and night. In the army, Gloria spread rumors everywhere that my charity was fake, that I transferred money late and was stingy with my help. An orphan who pretended to be a noble young lady outside. Vain to the extreme. Because of this, Martin disliked me even more. After the marriage, he immediately began living separately from me. After a drunken night, we had our son. Since then, he had remained faithful to Gloria and stayed wary of every time I approached him. Chapter 3. Gloria looked aggrieved, and Martin naturally felt sorry for her. He quickly suggested that she could stay at my house temporarily. Gloria didn't stand on ceremony, as if she had prepared for this long ago. She pointed straight at my bedroom. I think that room looks pretty good. Following the direction of her finger, Martin frowned slightly, but soon relaxed his expression. I suppose that could work. The son I had raised with my own hands clapped excitedly. Yay, yay. It would be even better if Aunt Gloria could be my mom. His eager tone made it sound as if he wished I would move out immediately. Martin smiled faintly, looking both helpless and satisfied as he gently patted our son's head. When I set the key down, it accidentally made a small sound. The warm scene was instantly shattered by my presence. My son quickly covered the family photo on the table, while Martin returned to his usual cold and distant expression. I knew they were waiting for me to explode in anger. After all, I had cried and caused countless scenes before because of Gloria's constant lack of boundaries. To be honest, it was all rather pointless. I withdrew my gaze indifferently, too lazy to care anymore. I poured myself a glass of water and gulped it down in one breath. As if nothing had happened, Martin froze for a moment, then unexpectedly spoke to me first. Are you hungry? I can cook you a bowl of noodles. In the past, if he gave me even the slightest opening, I would eagerly take it, because I had long wanted to eat something he cooked. But I knew very well, those seemingly caring words were only meant to change the subject, because he was afraid I would start picking on Gloria. Originally, I didn't plan to respond, but Martin's gaze was too sharp, as if he would stare straight through me if I ignored him. So I could only answer perfunctorily. I'm not hungry, I just drank enough water. Clearly, Gloria failed to understand Martin's intentions. Filled with jealousy, she stood up. I should go. My son immediately hugged Gloria's leg and burst into loud sobs. Mom is bad. As soon as you came back, you chased Aunt Gloria away. Mom should be the one to leave. I want Aunt Gloria to stay. A lump formed in my chest, stuck there, unable to move up or down. Martin reluctantly picked up the car keys, clearly unwilling to let Gloria leave. See? I was the unnecessary one here, but it didn't matter. In another week, I would completely disappear from their lives and never be in their way again. Letting out the heavy breath trapped in my chest, I forced a faint smile. Since everyone wants you to stay, then don't leave. From now on, you can live in my room. Gloria stared at me in shock. Even the usually composed Martin showed a trace of surprise in his eyes. Only my son, completely unaware of anything, instantly stopped crying and started laughing. Really? Yay! That's great! The emotions in Martin's eyes flickered. Before Gloria could move, he hurriedly spoke. No need. Gloria will go back after her vacation. I'll find her a hotel. No need to trouble you. After 7 years of marriage, it seemed I had never truly understood Martin. Logically speaking, if Gloria stayed here, they would be closer. He should have been eager to agree. Even Gloria looked wronged by Martin's unusual reaction, a tear hanging on the verge of falling. For once, Martin's attention was not on Gloria. His gaze remained fixed on me the entire time. It seemed that, at last, he had begun to notice that something about me was different. Chapter 4. Meeting his gaze. I smiled calmly. It's no trouble. I've accepted a job. I won't be using that room anymore anyway. A trace of irritation appeared in Martin's deep eyes. Oh, where are you going to do odd jobs this time? My son muttered unhappily. All you can do is cook and mop the floor. You can't even earn $3,000 a month. If you hadn't married my dad, would you be able to live such a good life? It felt as if someone had poured a basin of lemon water over my heart, sour and painfully wrinkled. My father-in-law had long been absent from home, and the money for my tuition and living expenses had already been cut off. With nothing but my rough hands, I worked countless part-time jobs and still managed to get into the School of Mathematical Sciences at Peking University. No one in the family knew any of this. In 7 years of marriage, Martin had been so distant that he didn't even know what kind of work I did. During my 10 months of pregnancy, including the day I gave birth, I went to the hospital alone, holding my swollen belly. When I nearly died from dystocia on the delivery bed, it was I who forced myself to sign my own critical condition notice. I gave up generous benefits and chose the most relaxed position in my research team. Also, I could raise my son in good health. Yet my own son mocked me sarcastically like I was some kind of parasite. If this had happened before, I would have poured out my grievances to win even a shred of their attention. But now I simply said calmly, "No, I'm preparing to participate in." Before I could finish, Gloria suddenly frowned and clutched her stomach in pain. I don't know why, but my stomach suddenly hurts. Martin instantly withdrew his gaze from me. He knelt on one knee beside Gloria and anxiously checked her abdomen. "Does it hurt here? Or here?" The son who usually expected me to serve him at meals quickly poured a cup of hot water and handed it to Gloria. "Auntie, will drinking some hot water make it better?" The scene before me, my family surrounding someone with concern, was a dream I could never reach in my lifetime. So they did know how to care for someone. They just never cared about me. I remembered that this summer had been especially stifling. After cooking alone all afternoon, I collapsed in the living room. My son glanced at me disdainfully and continued eating. When I woke up, it was already afternoon. The dim sunset made the living room feel especially desolate. My son was in the bedroom playing video games, while the table was covered with the messy remains of their finished meal. A week later, on our wedding anniversary, Martin still said he was busy and couldn't come home. My mother-in-law took my son to an extracurricular class. I specially cooked many of Martin's favorite dishes, planning to bring them to the base to surprise him. The security guard told me he had already gone back to accompany his lover. Clearly, that lover was not me. I only learned where Martin had gone from a video on Gloria's social media. At the amusement park, Gloria wore a playful Mickey Mouse headband and held my son tightly in her arms. My son grabbed Martin's hand and kissed Gloria on the cheek. From behind the camera came my mother-in-law's voice. "Come on, you two lovebirds. Give each other a hug." Martin pressed his thin lips together hesitantly, but in the end he smiled lightly and pulled Gloria into his arms. Chapter 5. When I arrived at the amusement park, they had just finished playing and were coming out happily. I hid behind a tree, only a few steps away from Martin. Through the phone, I could even hear my son's excited screams and Gloria's sweet laughter. How much I wished that at this moment Martin would tell the truth, that he wouldn't lie. But he said, "New recruits training, still busy." I bit my lip until it bled and answered while gripping my phone. "Okay, this world is full of illusions. Only pain never lies." I told myself it would pass. I wasn't sad, not at all. Without waiting for Martin to condescend and drive me away, I sensibly moved into the guest room myself. Gloria happily moved into the master bedroom, and my son even insisted on sleeping with her. It seemed that even if I left, my son would live very happily. That was good. The next day, my mother-in-law finally returned from her trip and brought many souvenirs. There were gifts for my son, for Martin, and even for Gloria. I stood there awkwardly, wondering how I should thank her later. But after all the gifts were distributed, she merely glared at me with dissatisfaction. "Hurry up and cook." While I was traveling, I kept craving your cooking. I can't get used to food outside. Her tone sounded exactly like she was ordering a servant. In fact, that was exactly what I was. Meanwhile, Gloria, An outsider. Hugged my mother-in-law like a real daughter-in-law and kissed her cheek. Auntie, you're so kind. My mother-in-law held Gloria's hand and looked more satisfied the longer she looked. In the army, I'll have to rely on you to take good care of my son. When people feel awkward, they tend to look around aimlessly. When I turned my head, I met Martin's gaze, which seemed to carry an unusual emotion. He glanced at my empty hands and slowly walked toward me with a gift. Was he planning to give it to me out of pity? Just as his hand reached me, Gloria suddenly rushed over and snatched the gift from Martin's hands, her eyes sparkling. Wow, I like this one too. Can you give it to me? Martin froze for a moment and glanced at me, under Gloria's expectant gaze. He finally nodded. All right. Taking the gift, Gloria looked at me with clear triumph in her eyes, while my thoughts were still in chaos. My mother-in-law suddenly shoved me. What are you standing there for? Go cook. Do you expect me to do it? Rubbing the dull pain in my chest, I said casually. In the days when I'm not here, you'll have to learn to cook for yourselves. My son scoffed, thinking I was pretending. In the future? You talk like you're about to die. In a way, I suppose I am. But looking at their happy family, it seemed my presence or absence made no difference. So let this be the last meal I cook for them. Chapter 6. I skillfully tied on my apron and turned into the kitchen. Gloria followed closely behind, looking extremely eager and virtuous. Sister, let me help you. My mother-in-law immediately pulled her away, her face full of reproach. You're a military doctor, a person who serves the country, not someone born to spend your life waiting on others. After saying that, she shot me a sideways glance. I knew she was mocking me for being inferior to Gloria. If she helped, all three of us would end up unhappy. Why should I make things unpleasant for myself? The stir-fried pork with green peppers in the pan was steaming. Suddenly, my vision began spinning in the rising mist. The weightless feeling left me disoriented, and I collapsed toward the floor. At some point Martin had come to stand behind me. He quickly caught me in his arms. Perhaps it was just my imagination, but I saw his brows tightly furrowed. Concern and panic intertwined in his eyes. Are you okay? Do you need help? His firm muscles pressed against me, burning hot. Using the strength of his arm, I barely managed to stand upright before hurriedly pulling away from his embrace. My mother-in-law rushed into the kitchen like she was guarding against a thief, standing between the two of us. The moment she came back I could tell, she's just pretending so she doesn't have to cook. I was about to explain when Gloria ran over, pulling Martin away with a bright smile. Come look at the family portrait our son drew. It's actually pretty good. The spatula moved back and forth in the pan, but I couldn't drive the image out of my mind. In the drawing of the family portrait, there were 4 people. Martin, my son, my mother-in-law, Gloria. When I finally sat at the table, the 4 of them were peacefully taking turns serving each other food. Only leftovers remained on the table. I, the one who cooked the meal, held my chopsticks but didn't know what I could possibly pick up. After eating her fill, my mother-in-law exchanged a glance with Gloria and then straightened her posture. Victoria, there are some things I need to make clear to you. She took out 2 items. One was the divorce agreement between Martin and me. The other was a bank card containing $10,000. You know very well that you and my son are worlds apart. Your job is nothing worth mentioning. Now my son has found his true love. My grandson doesn't like you either, and I've long been dissatisfied with you. By the time she finished speaking, I already understood everything. I turned to look at Martin. His eyes were lowered, and beneath his long lashes no clear emotion could be seen. My heart sank completely. The Chilean project was about to begin. It was time to settle everything. I put down my chopsticks. Coincidentally, I also have something to say to all of you. Chapter 7. My mother-in-law immediately raised her hand to stop me impatiently. There's no need for those clingy words of yours. Let me speak first. She pushed the divorce agreement and the bank card toward me. Back then, your parents risked their lives to save Martin's father. We were grateful, but we raised you like a treasure in the palm of our hands. That debt has long been repaid. Donating your kidney to my son was your own choice. It doesn't count as a sacrifice. Besides, my son even wronged himself by marrying you. We're not asking you to repay us. We're only asking you to let my son go. If that's not enough, I'll kneel to you. As she said this, She made a move to kneel, determined to force me to sign the divorce papers. I exposed her act without mercy. There's no need to put on a show. I'll sign. Under Martin's slowly widening eyes, I picked up the pen without hesitation. The moment I signed my name, I actually felt relieved. At last, I no longer had to bear the blame of betraying the marriage. At last, it was over. My son raised both hands in excitement, cheering happily. Yay, I can finally get a new mom. Gloria was thrilled, forgetting all restraint. She immediately tried to take Martin's hand, ready to fly off together with him. This divorce can't happen. Martin turned sideways and deliberately avoided Gloria's touch. He reached over and snatched the divorce agreement from my hand. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the document warped in his grip, tore apart, and scattered into pieces all over the room. Martin, what are you doing? Gloria's face flushed bright red, covering her face. She ran toward the bedroom. My mother-in-law slammed the table angrily. Have you lost your mind? Isn't this what you've always wanted? Martin's face darkened. After a long silence, he explained. My career is on the rise right now. If I get divorced, what will my superiors think of me? What will they think of Gloria? For a moment, I thought he truly didn't want the divorce. But in the end, it was still for Gloria's reputation. Let him do as he pleased, even if the agreement wasn't signed. Once I left, everything would be automatically erased anyway. Amid the shouting and chaos, I quietly walked out the door alone. I took a taxi to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic I often visited. I usually came here to buy medicine for my father-in-law. Ever since he was injured, every windy or rainy day brought stabbing pain to his chest. I had asked countless specialists, and only the herbal medicine from this clinic seemed particularly effective. Before he returned home on leave, I would always prepare some in advance so he could take it back to the military camp. Every time, he would gently pat my head with affection, his eyes filled with warmth. Victoria, what would this family do without you? My father-in-law treated me extremely well. Every month he divided his salary into 3 parts, one for household expenses, one for me, and one for savings. But the portion meant for me had long been taken by my mother-in-law. While others enjoyed family affection by their parents' side, I was at construction sites until the calluses on my hands split open. Yet I didn't want to trouble my father-in-law, so I lived frugally and finished my studies. This time, I asked the doctor to write down the prescription. When I'm gone, they will still be able to use it to get medicine for him. Chapter 8. After buying the medicine, I felt like wandering around the mall for a while. When I passed a cosmetics counter, my reflection in the mirror showed a tired and haggard face. The dull expression completely overshadowed my delicate and well-defined features. If my parents had not died, I would probably still be the treasured daughter they held in their palms. Perhaps I would not have wasted away into this state. A shop assistant approached with a smile. What would you like to buy? I shook my head blankly. I don't really understand these things. That's okay. You can try some makeup even if you're not buying anything. She pulled me into a chair and began applying various things to my face. Little by little, the woman in the mirror transformed. Gradually, she looked like a completely different person. So radiant, with no trace of the wear and tear of time. Look how beautiful you are, she said. A woman should love herself more. I'm not saying this to make you spend money here. You're truly beautiful. It's a pity not to dress up. She was right. If even I didn't love myself, who else would cherish me? Not wanting her efforts to go to waste, I bought a lipstick before leaving. The clothes I wore had been the same ones for years. Since I would soon go somewhere new for work, I should buy some new clothes. After changing into fashionable outfits, I barely recognized the person in the mirror. My mood lifted considerably. With several bags in hand, I walked out of the mall. The sky looked heavy and dark. The clouds overhead were dense and close, like smoke gathering before a storm. People bustled through the streets, some laughing, some hurrying along. Perhaps Martin was simply too striking. Among the crowd, my eyes immediately locked onto him. He wore a black trench coat, standing upright beside his car with a cigarette between his fingers. Just standing there, he easily drew the attention of many passers-by. When he first saw me, he hesitated for a long time before recognizing me. The man who had seemed so aloof moments earlier quickly crushed his cigarette underfoot. I saw that it was about to rain, so I came to pick you up. It sounded like he was explaining himself, afraid I might misunderstand his sudden concern. But the explanation was unnecessary. A faint redness crept onto the tips of Martin's ears. After a moment of silence, he said, "You look very beautiful today." For so many years I had exhausted myself for this family. Yet he had never once spared me a glance. Now he was generous with praise. But my heart no longer stirred. I smiled politely. "Thank you. Get in. I'll take you home." This was the first time I had ever ridden in his car, and it would also be the last. When I opened the passenger door, I saw a row of Mickey Mouse dolls Gloria liked. A sticker on the seat read, "Reserved for Cutie." I turned quietly, preparing to sit in the back seat. Martin hurriedly threw the dolls into the back and quickly tore off the sticker. "Gloria is young and playful. I won't let her decorate the car like this anymore." He patted the passenger seat firmly, his tone leaving no room for refusal. "Sit here." Chapter 9. I didn't plan to argue further, so I bent down and sat in the seat. Just as I settled in, he suddenly leaned over, his arm crossed in front of my chest, half enclosing me in his embrace. The faint smell of tobacco drifted closer as he reached for the seatbelt at my waist. Whether from nervousness or something else, I could clearly feel his body trembling. For a long time, he couldn't align the buckle. I sighed and took it from him, fastening it myself. "I can do it." He responded faintly. The rain came suddenly, pouring down in heavy sheets, and the streets outside quickly blurred. I had never sat alone with him in such an enclosed space before. I could even smell the crisp scent on him, carrying the stern and disciplined aura unique to soldiers. From time to time he turned to glance at me. Finally, he couldn't bear the silence and spoke first. "What did you buy?" Only then did I realize I was still holding the medicine in my arms. I placed it down. "Oh, some traditional medicine for your father. And this is the prescription. I'll put it in the armrest compartment. From now on, you can handle buying the medicine." The car suddenly braked sharply. Martin stared straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel tightly with both hands. His voice sounded hoarse. "Why does it sound like you're leaving?" Last words. "Disappearing from this world, in a way." It was. "Actually, you don't have to work so hard. You can tell me. Let me share the burden." He turned to look at me. His deep gaze was both clear and unfathomable. "Share my burden?" The rain must be too loud. I must have heard wrong. "Victoria, I responded lightly. "Let's talk." But I had nothing left to say. I didn't answer him. I leaned my head against the window and closed my eyes to rest. The loud rain only amplified the silence between us. I was awakened by the ringing of Martin's phone. Even through the screen, I could hear Gloria's noisy voice. "It's raining so heavily. I'm stuck here. What should I do? I'm going to get soaked and catch a cold." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Martin glancing at me as well, checking whether I was awake. "I'm not available right now. Just take a taxi." "I can't. There are no taxis at all. Forget it. I'll just get soaked." After hanging up, Martin looked restless. He even accidentally ran a red light. I certainly didn't want to die in his car before I could dedicate myself to the country. So I finally broke the silence. "It's fine. You can drop me here and go pick her up. It's not far from home anyway. I can walk back myself." In this heavy rain, Martin looked conflicted, but eventually made a decision. "How about this? There's a bus stop up ahead. Wait there for me. I'll come back to pick you up in a while." The moment I closed the car door, the vehicle sped away, disappearing into the curtain of rain. I didn't turn back to look again. Instead, I ran to a nearby convenience store, bought an umbrella, and walked home alone. "See? I can take care of myself just fine." Chapter 10. After returning home, I began packing my luggage. It seemed I didn't even need a week. I could leave right now. However, after walking around the house, I realized that everything here carried traces of them. As for things that belonged to me, it seemed there was nothing. Finally, at the bottom of a cabinet, inside several layers of plastic bags, I found my marriage certificate with Martin. It showed how much I had treasured it back then. In the photo, I was smiling foolishly, while Martin wore a gloomy expression. Even our only memory looked unpleasant. The The family photo that included me had already been torn apart by my son. I lit a lighter and watched as the photo of Martin and me on the marriage certificate slowly turned to ashes in the flames. From now on, even when they thought of me, they would not be able to find a single trace of my existence. It would be easier for both of us. Soon, I heard movement in the living room, mixed with Gloria's soft, coquettish voice. "You're so good to me. You always appear by my side the moment I need you." I had long been used to the two of them showing affection, but this time Martin replied, "You're a guest. It's only right." The living room fell silent. After a while, Martin knocked on my door. I ignored him, wrapping the blanket tighter around myself, annoyed that he had disturbed my sweet dream. Early the next morning, there was a message from Martin on my phone. It had been sent at 3 in the morning. "Yesterday was my fault. I bought 2 movie tickets. Let's go watch a movie together." After so many years of marriage, the little romantic gestures he often shared with Gloria had never existed for me. This was the first time he had ever invited me to watch a movie. I thought that since I was leaving, at least I should say goodbye to him. By the time the movie ended, it would be time for us to part ways. But when the movie finally ended, Martin still hadn't arrived. Every time I took things seriously, every time I learned a lesson, every time I was disappointed, until the theater staff had all gone home, Martin finally sent a message. "Gloria got caught in the rain yesterday and got sick today. I'm at the hospital with her. Tomorrow, I'll take a couple more days off and spend some time with you." But we had no tomorrow. Whenever Gloria appeared, he would always choose her without hesitation. Even this time, when he was the one who had invited me, I had long expected this scene, so I had already informed the director to come pick me up in advance. Chapter 11. When I returned home, no one was there. They had all gone to the hospital to accompany Gloria. The word goodbye was never spoken. I didn't take anything with me. I only changed into the new clothes I had bought and tidied myself up carefully. The car slowly approached, and the director came forward to greet me with a troubled expression. As if reluctant, he asked, "Victoria, I'll give you one last chance. Are you certain you want to completely cut ties with your family and devote your life to scientific research?" I had already made this choice in my previous life. Back then, I chose my family and became a housewife without regret. As the years passed, Martin grew more and more annoyed with me. When my body finally collapsed under the burden of life, my mother-in-law forced me to divorce, and my son also despised me for being useless. I watched helplessly as Martin and Gloria ended up together, angered to the point of coughing blood. When I was lying in bed with only one breath left, Martin held a grand wedding and married Gloria. My son looked at me with ridicule and disdain. "You should have died long ago. You delayed my dad and auntie for so many years." After my death, my father-in-law, who had been kept in the dark for a long time, vomited blood and anger and died in front of my small grave. In this life, I will never repeat the same mistake. "Martin, this time, I am the one who doesn't want you anymore." I looked firmly at the director. "Please trust my determination. I will devote my entire life to the country, without regret." The director's eyes grew moist as he held my hand. "Comrade Victoria, no. Your code name now is Red Eagle. Welcome to the Chilean project and to our team." The moment I got into the car, I became someone from a completely different world from them. The car drove for a long time, passing through brightly lit skyscrapers, through bustling crowds, past mountains, past streams, until finally disappearing deep into the mountains. From this moment on, we would part ways peacefully, each living our own life, never disturbing the other again. Chapter 12. The whole family had been busy taking care of Gloria. By the time they returned home, it was already the evening several days later. In the past, I would always wait for them to come back, with steaming hot meals prepared. This time, my mother-in-law knocked on the door for quite a while, but no one answered. She cursed angrily. "That lazy woman, sleeping so early. I've been knocking forever and she still won't open the door." The few of them stomped their feet outside in the cold, and after a long wait a locksmith finally arrived. When the door was opened, the house was cold and empty. Everything looked exactly the same as when they had left. The unwashed bowls and chopsticks lay quietly in the sink, already covered with a layer of mold. My son cried out hungrily. "Why didn't Mom cook? I don't want takeout anymore. I want Mom's food." My mother-in-law felt distressed and started scolding again. Where the hell did Victoria go? Not even cooking dinner. She's really gone too far. A faint sense of unease rose in Martin's heart. He wiped the dust from the windowsill with his fingertip. It was obvious no one had been home for days. A wave of fear wrapped around him like the deepening night. Only then did he remember. I promised to watch a movie with her. I forgot. Could she be angry? He searched the house several times, even checking the storage room, but still couldn't find any trace of me. Gloria poked her fingers together with a pitiful expression. Could it be that sister got angry because you were all with me and ran away from home? My mother-in-law opened a drawer and threw my ID card onto the table. Speaking confidently, her documents are all here. How could she run away? Does she even have that ability? Besides, she doesn't even have a family to go back to. Where could she go? Martin dialed my phone number, but his heart slowly tightened, until my phone ringtone suddenly sounded from the guest room. Everything was still there, except me. My son was already starving and cried while clutching his stomach. I want food. My mother-in-law smiled awkwardly and looked at Gloria. How about we try your cooking today? Over the years, Gloria had also grown used to enjoying my service. Though reluctant, she quickly forced a smile. Of course, but as soon as she turned around, her expression changed and she muttered irritably while cooking, pouring half a bag of salt into the dish. I'm marrying into your family, not becoming your maid. The result was disastrous. My son spat out the food after one bite, and my mother-in-law kept rinsing her mouth from the saltiness. Gloria blinked her watery eyes innocently. My cooking really isn't good. My mother-in-law understood perfectly but couldn't say anything. At the dinner table, chaos unfolded. Only Martin sat silently on the sofa. He seemed troubled, staring blankly at the last message I had sent. From time to time, he walked to the door and looked outside. 1 day, 2 days. At first, they still managed to maintain a surface-level harmony. Gradually, even my mother-in-law wanted to bring me back as soon as possible. The army had long urged Martin to return to his unit, but he would rather disobey orders than leave before I came back. Finally, the whole family couldn't sit still anymore and went to the police station to report it. Officer, I think my wife has been kidnapped. Chapter 13. Panicked. Martin placed his last hope in the police. The officer asked him about my name, height, age, appearance, and workplace. Martin stammered for a long time before realizing that, apart from my name, he knew nothing else. Even the police officer looked speechless. You rushed in here saying you were looking for your wife. I thought you really cared about her, but you don't even know these basic details? Martin's face turned red. Finally, he remembered to take out our marriage certificate. The officer searched through the system for a while, then looked at Martin strangely. Is this certificate fake? There's no person named Victoria. Look carefully. There's an official seal stamped on it. Victoria is my wife. Martin had completely lost his usual composure and shouted anxiously. But your marital status shows that you're unmarried. After saying that, the officer turned to my mother-in-law. Could he be under too much mental stress? You might want to take him to see a psychiatrist. With that single sentence, everyone fell silent. It was impossible that all of them had hallucinated and imagined someone named Victoria out of thin air. Martin stood there in a daze. His usually upright posture suddenly weakened. Their son was standing there in flesh and blood. Yet this marriage seemed to have turned into nothing more than a dream, as if the person named Victoria had never existed at all. My mother-in-law thought for a moment, and suddenly her eyes lit up. Isn't this perfect? You don't even need a divorce anymore. Hurry up and hold a wedding with Gloria. It will still be your first marriage. Gloria shyly twisted the corner of her clothes with her fingers. It doesn't need to be too grand. As long as I can be with Martin, I'm willing no matter what. When did I ever say I would marry Gloria? Martin interrupted coldly. The way he looked at Gloria had never been so cold before, as if he were looking at a complete stranger. My wife has only ever been one person, Victoria. After saying that, he turned and walked out. Getting into the car, Gloria chased after him from behind, falling to the ground and cutting her chin until it bled. Martin didn't even look back. He had tried every possible method. Now there was only one option left. For years, Martin had not called his father even once. But this time, He took the initiative to break the silence and dialed his father's number. Chapter 14. After learning what had happened, my father-in-law rushed home overnight and exploded with rage. "I'm busy at the military camp. Not dead. What kind of things have you all been doing behind my back? If anything happens to Victoria, I'll cut ties with every single one of you." He pointed at my mother-in-law's nose, his teeth grinding in fury. "If Victoria's parents hadn't saved my life back then, you would have been the widowed mother raising an orphan, and you still dared to force her to divorce." He glared at Martin, his eyes full of murderous anger. "If Victoria hadn't donated her kidney to you regardless of her own health, the grass on your grave would already be this tall." As he spoke, he slapped the son he had always cherished. "When your mother had a difficult childbirth, she told the doctors without hesitation to save the baby, not the mother. What right do you have to despise her? And you," he said through clenched teeth, pointing at Gloria, "you knew my son was already married and still clung to him, and you call yourself a military doctor. Get out of here right now. Don't ever show up in my house again." Gloria cried as she opened the door, looking back again and again, but Martin never tried to stop her. No one dared to say a word. Even the child remained silent. Because of his intense anger, my father-in-law's old illness flared up violently. He clutched his chest and sat on the sofa, unable to stand for a long time. Martin seemed to remember something and took out the herbal medicine I had prepared. When my father-in-law saw the packets of medicine, his eyes grew moist. After opening the package, a letter written in neat handwriting fell out. "Dad, this is the last time I will call you Dad. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. I have never blamed you for my parents' deaths. Being able to sacrifice for soldiers who protect the country must have been something they did willingly, without regret. The fate between Martin and me has come to an end. There is no need to force it. The only person I cannot let go of is you. Please take good care of your health and live a long life. Do not try to find where I am. Do not worry about me. Victoria." Chapter 15. Before the letter was even finished, my father-in-law was already in tears. He raised his hand and threw the letter heavily at Martin's face. "Look at what you've done." Martin hurriedly picked up the letter. His eyes moved along the lines of writing, and faint tears glimmered beneath his long lashes. Clutching the letter in his hands, he suddenly dropped to his knees in front of his father. I had grown up with him since childhood. I knew his pride better than anyone. He had never begged his father for anything. Even his current achievements had been built step by step with his own blood and sweat. But now he knelt devoutly at his father's feet. "I know I was wrong. I beg you, please help me find her. I will apologize to her face to face and ask for her forgiveness." Only then did my father-in-law's expression soften slightly. "You'd better mean it." However, even after contacting every connection he had, there was still no information. With no other choice left, he reluctantly called his former superior. After a while, the call returned. Martin waited with hope, but what he heard was like a bolt from the blue. The voice on the other end spoke seriously. "If even someone at my position can't find her, you should understand what that means." My father-in-law immediately understood. He slapped Martin across the face. "You and her have no fate left. Stop looking for her. Give up and go back to the army." But Martin still refused to believe it. He couldn't believe that someone who had loved him so deeply could truly leave him forever. He searched the house for any trace I had left behind. Finally, in the storage room, he found an abandoned delivery box filled with documents. Inside were my Peking University admission letter, my gold medal in the mathematical Olympiad, and numerous international competition certificates. The woman he had always looked down upon had actually been so outstanding. I had abandoned all the honors that once shone around me and devoted myself wholeheartedly to taking care of this family. And in the end, it was he who had personally pushed me toward a distance he could never reach again. Chapter 16. 5 years later, the base was infiltrated by spies, and several researchers died mysteriously. The organization dispatched the most elite Special Forces unit to assist in our evacuation. Even though I tried my best to appear calm, Martin's gaze still pierced through the crowd and easily locked onto me. A pair of strong hands suddenly seized me, tightening their grip. Martin's eyes were moist, his voice trembling. "Victoria?" The senior researchers beside me immediately pushed him away. "What are you doing?" "She's my wife," Martin said, a glimmer of regained hope flashing in his eyes. But my words extinguished it instantly. Look carefully. I don't know you, and I've never met you before. After 5 years of training and experience, I was no longer the timid person I used to be. Instead, there was a sharp confidence in my eyes, the unmistakable presence of an elite. After a long moment, he finally lowered his gaze in silence, as if all his strength had drained away. I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else. I just miss my wife too much. As I left, he looked back at me again and again, reluctant to turn away. In my previous life, I watched him leave. In this life, he watched me go, helplessly, painfully. He watched as I slowly disappeared from his sight once more. There was nothing he could do. I later heard that after returning, Martin volunteered for an extremely dangerous mission. During the operation, he turned all his regret into the strength to destroy the enemy. Like an unstoppable god of war, he repeatedly accomplished extraordinary feats, until the very moment he died in battle. The only name he murmured was mine. He left no last words for anyone in his family, but he left one letter for me. My wife, Victoria. How have you been out there? I miss you. 5 years have passed. What should I do? The more I try to forget you, the more uncontrollably I think about you. When I eat, when I walk, I remember that you were the one who gave me a second life, and I was the one who broke your heart. I have begun to hate myself. Sometimes I wish I could return my life to you completely. It feels as though I have developed a disease that will never heal. I hear you, see you, imagine you in every memory we once had, and I refuse to wake up. When I saw you again, for a moment I thanked heaven for returning you to me. But when you refused to recognize me, I finally understood. What was once lost can never be repaired. Perhaps only death can end everything. I'm not someone who knows how to write a will. Dying for my country has always been my destiny. When you read this letter, I suppose I will already have turned into dust. Maybe I will become a star in the sky, or perhaps just a piece of data in your computer. But I will always watch over you. Your husband, Martin. Chapter 17. After finishing the letter, I lit my lighter and set it on fire. I watched it slowly turn to ashes, just like the pieces of my past that I had chosen to let go. I respected his bravery in sacrificing his life for the country. But as the man who had once been my husband, I would never forgive him. Later, I learned that after I left, Martin completely cut off all contact with Gloria. Gloria originally tried to cling to him by using their son as leverage. But Martin was so resolute that he even gave up the child. For 5 years straight, he never left the army even once. Later, Gloria was expelled from the military after committing a serious mistake. With that stain on her record, no workplace was willing to hire her. In the end, she had no choice but to return to her hometown. She had hoped to marry a wealthy local man, but he turned out to be a drunkard. Gloria was beaten black and blue almost every day. My son grew much more mature. Whenever he spoke about his mother, his words were filled with guilt and regret. At Martin's funeral, my mother-in-law cried until she fainted. At the hospital, she was diagnosed with paralysis from a stroke. But none of this had anything to do with me anymore. I lowered my head and continued calculating my data, immersed in the world that belonged to me. From then on, I would devote my small heart to my country and offer my years to the mountains and rivers of my homeland.